So we have next up just another exciting book giveaway to do. And so get your keyboards ready and answer this question. First one to answer gets the last but not least personalized book from Mr. Donato Tramuto. According to the Markets Insider, by 2025, the global electronic health records market is expected to reach what size in US dollars? Of course, A, 20 billion, B, 33 billion, or C, 49 billion, or D, 1 trillion. We've got answers all over the place. The correct answer is B, $33.4 billion. And a lot of people did answer B. But the first one who looks like they answered B, going back up here, was, looks like, I don't want to say that yet. All right, James from Canada, our venture capitalist extraordinaire, and a CBS Digital Health Program alum. Well done, James. Good to see you representing the Columbia Business School Club. So anyway, James, look for your personalized signed copy from Donato Tramuto, who just so happens is our next and our last keynote speaker here today. And he will be talking about the double bottom line. And I have to say, I've known Donato for 3 decades, and his work is really thoughtful, very intentional, and will provide insights to anybody, whether they're a 22-year-old just getting out and started in the healthcare ecosystem, or someone who's been around healthcare for decades. This kind of compassionate leadership, this kind of understanding how to lead with empathy. And so really trying to put yourself in the other person's shoe, whether it's you're a startup and you're trying to make a pitch to a venture capitalist, really trying to envision what that venture capitalist is looking for, or whether you are a life science company and you're working with a startup, trying to envision what that startup is going through. And so you can build better partnerships, build better relationships when you start taking that compassionate leadership perspective. And there is no one who can talk better about that in the world than Donato Tramuto. Donato, welcome back to the program. Always good to see you. Assuming you're in Algonquin, how are you doing?
Sorry about that. I was muted. Stan, thank you very much. I'm doing fantastic. And it's always really great to be involved in anything you do, because you do it from your heart with great intellectual focus. So thank you for inviting me today.
No, I really appreciate it. And, again, a lot of our audience knows who you are and knows about your work, albeit whether it was running a NASDAQ 1000 company, or whether it was running Physicians Interactive or other companies before that. But give people like a minute or so background on your journey.
Well, thank you very much. I've been in healthcare now for 4 decades. But I have been focused on being a compassionate leader my entire life. I am reminded by the great quote from Mark Twain: the 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. And Stan, I think you have articulated it very correctly. For me, it's never been about, just business. It's been about integrating the business imperatives with people first. And my latest project is really helping to make the world a little bit more compassionate and kind. I have been fortunate. I'm a product of having lost my hearing at age 8, as you know, and for 10 years, I had little to no hearing. I think that experience, coupled with the tragedy of 9/11, as you know, I was supposed to be on that second plane that hit the South Tower, and my 2 friends and their 3-year-old who were staying with me that weekend boarded that plane. But I think those 2 situations discovered not only my professional why, which was healthcare, because I experienced a lot of medication errors and mistakes during the time that I was struggling to get my hearing restored. And then, of course, 9/11 really established my personal why. For the last 20 years, I have been dedicated to making the world a more just and fair place. The last 2 years, by design, I stepped down from being a CEO. I had been putting that into play for a number of years to dedicate whatever time I have left to this notion that we can lead with the focus on profits and on people. It doesn't have to be a trade-off. And so I am really touched by how the book has taken off. It's been a bestseller on Amazon in several categories for the last 4 months. We're now going into our second reprint. But what really makes me feel tremendously satisfied is just the number of leaders who have reached out to me and said, you know what, you're absolutely correct. I have an opportunity now in this new abnormal sense of the work environment to define a whole new leadership standard.
That's fantastic. And if you could, Donato, tell the audience where the title, the double bottom line comes from.
Well, that's a very good point. You'll get a kick out of this, Stan, because you've known me for years. My publisher put 50 different titles in front of me, and I turned everyone down. I wanted it to be the double bottom line because for many, many years, when I would establish my leadership mantra as compassionate, many of my colleagues would say, oh, that's weak. You have to be focused on profits. And I would look at them and say, well, I am. I didn't get to where I'm at today by not being successful. And I am also focused on people. And so it's really an establishment that you can deliver results and captivate hearts. Now, whoever knew during the time that I had established this book as a project that we would be faced with one of the toughest work environments that I think we have observed in our lifetime. People call it the Great Resignation, Stan. No, that's the wrong term. It's the Great Reflection. People are reflecting on their lives. The resignation is a consequence of that. People are reflecting on their lives like they have never done before. There are 5 generations now in the workforce. And so we have to really understand that we can't just lead in this hierarchical manner. And so the double bottom line is a recognition that we are not suggesting you forget about profits. In fact, you have to be profitable or you will not remain in your position, but you can be impactful by also putting people at the top.
That is spot on. And we've got some interesting comments too, Donato. Someone actually in the audience went through 7 years without their hearing and is definitely empathizing with what you've gone through. And so you, in building this book and really completing this project, you interviewed dozens of some of the world leaders, some of the biggest business leaders, not-for-profit leaders, government leaders out there. And it'd be great, just as a synopsis of those and a synopsis of the book, what were some of the most interesting things, some of the biggest takeaways that you came away with in talking to all those folks?
Well, Stan, you may not know this, but you have had a great influence on me. You taught me a lot about the importance of data. And I have to be honest with you, when I was contemplating the book, I was only thinking about interviewing 10. We interviewed 41 world leaders, and the audience will know some of them. We interviewed Bruce Broussard, the CEO of Humana. We interviewed Katie Couric, Alex Gorski from J&J, but I also interviewed a 17-year-old young lad who during the pandemic started a company that was focused on helping seniors learn about how to use social media. He wanted to pull them out of their loneliness. And so this is not a book according to Donato. This is a book of deep research. And we went one step further, is that we surveyed 1,500 people in the United States. And we really extracted some really important nuggets. For example, we saw that 84% of respondents believe a compassionate workplace leads to cooperation, which in turn leads to greater productivity and profitability. Yet most workers, 68%, believe that the workplace is more competitive than cooperative. And so we really drilled down with the 41 leaders that we interviewed, and they agreed that for whatever reason, the competition should be outside the 4 walls of a company. It shouldn't be inside. And if it is inside, you're not going to get the cooperation. And cooperation is one of the key nuggets in terms of how you can lead with compassion. The other thing we learned, we came up with the definition of compassionate leadership. I didn't go into this project with a definition. Compassionate leadership is empathy in action. It's not just good enough to say, I feel the pain of that person. Stan, every issue that we are trying to address in healthcare, whether it be loneliness, whether it be healthcare access, whether it be food insecurity, if you don't understand the pain of that other person, you will never come up with the kind of solutions that can really be delivered at scale. Because I lost my hearing, because I had 8 years of bullying and I was in a state of loneliness, because my sister-in-law died in childbirth as a result of medication error, rest assured, I know the pain of someone who tells me that they're lonely. I know the pain that when someone tells me I lost my hearing because of a medication error. And so I have devoted my professional career to try to address those issues. And so for whoever is listening here, every leader that we interview, they were not born with compassion. They learned it. They either learned it, some, learned it from their parents in their homes when they saw their parents struggling. Some people learned it during COVID. Other people learned it in a situation that they got involved with one of the employees and they realized, you know what? It's okay to be vulnerable. And that is another key element that we extracted out of the data. If you're not vulnerable, then you're not going to really make connection. Stan, for many, many years, I hid from my employees that I was deaf and that I had a speech impediment. I still have a speech impediment today. There are certain words that I can't pronounce, and that I'm a gay man. And when I received the 2014 Ripple of Hope, the Robert F. Kennedy Ripple of Hope Award, alongside Hillary Clinton, after her speech, I was getting up to present my speech, and I was not going to mention my partner. I was not going to mention my hearing loss. I was not going to mention that I failed the 5th grade. And I said to myself, how can I possibly receive a human rights award and not be vulnerable? And you know what? That night, in front of 400 of my employees, over 2,000 people in the audience, I shared my story. And I got a standing ovation. But what was more really moving to me is that afterwards, the employees came up to me, and it's kind of funny. They said, thank you for sharing that. Your life now is more interesting. We thought you were boring. And so we have to be willing to share our stories. And that's what I really found in all of the interviews. My last point, we rent our titles. We own our dignity. And dignity is about being who you are. And if you're not willing as a leader to be vulnerable and to share your story, you will never connect to the stories of other people. And that is what we write about in this book. And it's what I really do believe is going to help our leaders.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Donato, thank you very much. And on behalf of the audience, and certainly everyone at HITLAB, thank you for joining us today.
It's good. Stan, may I just sign off with this last point?
Please. Yeah.
We just learned this past week that we have received the National Compassionate Leadership Week. It will now be on the calendar. It will be on the calendar for September 11th to September 18th in perpetuity. And so for all of you who are listening, this is your opportunity to join the movement, not just to read the book, but to join the movement. And we couldn't be more thrilled that this calendar classification has been now given to us. And so we all have an opportunity to show empathy in action. Thank you very much for having me here today.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Donato. Wonderful presentation and just an incredible book. I would definitely recommend everybody grab this copy. It's a life changer, without a doubt. It really is. And his experience as an executive for 4 decades and then really supplemented with the interviews that he did was fantastic. So that wraps up the July Digital Health Access and Equity Symposium. Thank you all for joining us. And if you want to attend the August one through an auto enrollment, just click on just type yes in the chat box, and we will have one of our folks in the production team auto enroll you for the August symposium. And in the meantime, we're looking forward to seeing you all again there soon. And we also want to say special thanks to Digital Diagnostics for their funding of this program today. Remember, it is AI the right way, and that's very important. Very special thanks to all of the HITLAB production team for putting this together today. A lot of work goes into this, from Rachel Fredman on the marketing and comm side, through Yamina and Raymond and Jess, Kevin on the design and video production side, and then all of our terrific folks working on the social media side, including Ayana, Ava, Ashika, Christine, and then of course our captain, the production director, Jerry Antomato. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Have a terrific rest of the week and rest of the month. We will see you in August, and we will be talking about how we bridge the information gap and then continue talking about the data access and leverage there with everyone from Vicert and their CEO Voya to Nardo and Catalyze, and obviously our fearless leader, the chairman, Bill Taranto of the Merck Global Innovation Fund, and Lisa Crimes from HITLAB. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you in August. Please do keep us in touch and let us know if you have any other ideas and for speakers and topics to cover in the next several months of the symposium. Take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.